All right, I know oftentimes we have trouble with the Phasor addition of phasors, whatever you want to call it. Don't let the terminology mess with you. Think of these phasors as parts of right triangles, okay? So in order to add two of these phasors together, you have to have the what we call the rectangular coordinates. Now, if I am looking at a phasor, and just think about it on a graph, okay? Think about, on a grid here, and, let's say that this is Z1, and this is at, an angle of 32 degrees, and the measurement is 4, okay? And then you have this other phasor, and they're usually on the same grid. I'm just going to draw them on different grids. And let's say this is 21 degrees. Sorry about that. 21 degrees. And this is Z2, and that's a measure of 6. So we want to add Z1 and Z2. So we want to find Z1 plus Z2. Now your instinct is going to go, oh great, let's just take 4 plus 6 and get 10, and 32 and 21 and get 53 degrees. Doesn't work that way, okay, because our phasors have these rectangular coordinates here, okay. We go over and we go up, and that creates a nice little right triangle here. So it's kind of a pain in a way to get to where you need to get, because it's kind of like a big circle, but it's just what you got to do. So if I have this right triangle here where my hypotenuse is 4 and my angle is 32 degrees, and then I've got this other right triangle here where this is 6 and this angle is 21 degrees, I've got to find these two sides here, okay? Whatever you want to letter them, if you want to just say X and Y, doesn't really matter. You've got to find those. So the best way to do it, or really the only way to do it right now, is your trigonometry. Now you have to be careful rounding. So that's another problem. And I do apologize, but that's just the way the program's set up. Now on your test, it's not going to be quite as problematic, because I will check those for rounding and give you credit for those. But on your homework, it might be frustrating. So I'm just going to use my trigonometry here. And, I can use sine or cosine, and really the setup here is, this side here is going to be R, which is your hypotenuse here, cosine of the angle, and Y is R times sine of the angle. It's just a form of your, trig equations, Sine 32 is opposite over a hypotenuse, so therefore if we solve for the y, this is what we get, but this will save you some time. So x is going to be 4 times the cosine of 32. So let's figure out what that is on your calculator. I get 3.3922. Now, I am rounding to 4 decimal places just because it makes it more precise, and I'm not going to round off until I get to my final answer. So I'm just going to keep it to 4 decimal places. So y would be 4 times the sine of 32 degrees. So 32 sine times 4, and I get y equals 2.1197. Okay. So see, these are your rectangular coordinates. All right, these are your rectangular coordinates. And in phasors, we throw a J in front of the Y value. Okay, it's not going to be a big deal for your phasor because it's going to be, your hypotenuse at an angle, so it's not going to matter that much. But normally when you see it in electricity electronics, you put a J in front of it. But that's okay. We can just work with the numbers themselves. All right, so, right now if I think about coordinate form, I've got 3.3922 and I've got 2.1197. Now I'm going to look at the other triangle, do the same thing. X is r cosine theta, so 6 cosine 21. And I get x equals to 5.6015. Watch your rounding. And then y is 6 sine 21. So I do 21 sine times 6. And I get y equals 2.1502. All right, so for this coordinate, I have 5.6015, 2.1502. Okay, so now I'm going to add Z1 plus Z2 rectangular coordinates, and then I got to convert them back to polar coordinates, and I think that's where the confusion comes in. So I'm going to add my x coordinates together and add my y coordinates together. So I'm going to take 3.3922 plus 5.6015, comma, for my y coordinates, 2.1197 plus 2.1502. Okay. 3.3922 plus 5.6015, and I get 8.9937, 2.1197 plus 2.1502, and I get 4.2699. So this right here, this is Z1 plus Z2, the rectangular coordinates. So if I think about another triangle here, okay, and think about it on the coordinate axes, think about it up here in the first quadrant, okay. So my X is 8.9937, my Y is 4.2699, and I need to find R and theta, because R and theta, okay, they are my polar coordinates. So I can use my Pythagorean theorem to find R. So R is the square root of 8.9937 squared plus 4.2699 squared. And if I take the square root of that, now here's where I can round. Because, see, this is my final answer. So whatever you're asked to round to, my answer is 9.956. It might ask you to round to the tenths place. It may ask you round to the hundredths place, and you may end up making this the whole number. So a lot of it depends upon where you're rounding. But if I was rounding to the tenths place, this actually gives me about 10. Okay. Depends where you're rounding to now. All right. So I know R is 10. So then I find my angle. Use any trig equation I want to. I will just use tangent here. So tangent of my theta is my opposite side divided by my adjacent side. This camera straightened out here a little bit better. I'll take 4.2699 divided by 8.9937, and I get my ratio of 0.4748. And then don't forget your theta, and I'm running out of space, bad planning, is your tangent inverse 0.4748. So I do second tangent, and I get an angle of roughly 25.4 degrees. Okay, again, depending on how they ask you to round. Okay, that's what your angle is. So therefore, my Z1 plus Z2 up here is 10 at 25.4 degrees. Okay. So, they're not easy. It's a lot of work. It's, you got to do a lot of stuff to get there. But I think if you, can make it easier on yourself by using these two formulas for X and Y, it'll make it quicker on you. Just round to 4 decimal places, 3 or 4 decimal places, at least 3. Because if you round too early, your answers are going to be off just a little, and then that's going to make everything wrong on your homework. So, I'm hoping this maybe helps you a little bit. But that's one problem I know students have is with these addition of phasors on the exam, which is coming up in 4 days. So I thought maybe I'd just shoot out another example to you of some of the stuff you're doing. The couple last items, the frequency, angular velocity, all that, just make sure you use the correct formula and just put the numbers in and use your prefixes. So practice those. All right. Well, if you have any questions, let me know. I mean, it is spring break next week for my college, but I still will be checking email. So good luck.